Warning. The system has become unstable.
Hey, Prepper Recon podcast fans. This is a special edition broadcast of the interview I gave on the Midnight Patriot Show. Jeff Norton, the Midnight Patriot, interviewed me on the Prepper Recon 7-Step Survival Plan. It's a great way to prioritize your prepping, so enjoy the show.
Yesterday, Harvard, if you were listening to the show, Harvard came out and said that we have an independent study, and by the way, same college that President Barack Obama went to, Harvard Law. But their economists are saying that we have about $123,000 per working American debt right now. It was 56 when he came into office. Now we're at 123,000. So if the economy quit or the government shut down and we had to pay the debts, every working American would have to write a check for $123,000. So it's not getting any better. And we know what the problems are. I mean, we talk about it every day on our Facebook pages, on our blogs. You hear about it on the radio and the news and stuff. And so we know what the problem is. So today is a very important day because, we're bringing on Prepper Recon. Well, I should say Mark, AKA Prepper Recon. And, we're going to talk about some solutions to the problem out there. I mean, we know what the problem is. Now let's kind of back up and talk about solutions. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, not a problem, man. I am so happy to have you here. I hear so much, when I talk to people and tell them what's going on, and sheeple, I don't know if you heard the conversation last night. We talked about sheeple, people that just kind of follow. Yeah. And, and the first thing that, once I do wake them up and I say, look, the numbers are there, 123,000, pull out your checkbook right now and write a check for $123,000. Most people don't even have $123 in their bank account. And if they do, if you have it at Chase, you can't take it out. Apparently they're starting to charge fees to take out your own money. But, they're
starting capital controls.
Exactly. And the banks, you got to follow. I've always said, if you want to know what's going on, follow what the smart people are doing. And you're seeing a huge disinvestment in America. You're seeing the Bushes, they have their private island that they're out on. The banks are doing what they're doing. But the man on the street, the man and woman on the street, the first thing that they come back to me is, what can I do? And that's why I have you or asked you to be a part of this show. From a prep, we know what the problems are. What are forget about we're not going to be able to fix, you and I are not going to be able to fix the economic problems in the United States. But one of the things we can do is prepare our families. So that's why, I asked you to join the show, and I, thank you very much for being here, sharing your knowledge with our audience. What can you and I do? What can we do? Let's just start there. I throw you a curveball right off the bat. I mean, where do we start? I mean, a lot of us just don't even know where to start, even including myself.
Let me just start by saying when I sort of woke up, I think September 11th, 2001 woke a lot of us up and snapped us out of our normalcy bias. Normalcy bias is that thing that tells you, because something's never happened to me, even though I've read it in history books, it never can happen to me. And my normalcy bias got shaken on September 11th, and I realized, you know what? I'm not as safe as I thought I was. And then I think I sort of got lulled back to sleep a little bit. And then in 2008, I really saw how close we really came to a complete economic meltdown. And we've done nothing to repair any of the fundamentals that caused 2008. In fact, we've pretty much exacerbated all of the fundamentals that caused the crisis in 2008. Our banks were too big to fail. So what do? We merged them all into these too bigger to fail banks. They went from too big to fail to too big to bail now, and I guess they're also too big to jail, aren't they? But what I did is on my website, prepperrecon.com, I came up with a 7-step preparedness plan. And I tried to lay it out to where it would be prioritized so that somebody that knew absolutely nothing about prepping could go in there and get a little bit of an overview and prioritize their efforts. And each step I started with a B letter word, so that would be sort of easy to remember. And the first B is body, mind, and soul, because you're your number one survival tool. So for your body, you need to be in decent shape. Try to get to the gym a couple days a week, get a little exercise, even if it's just getting out and going for a walk. You need to be in decent shape, because when things go bad, especially when they go irrevocably bad, like you would see in a post-earthquake scenario or a post-hurricane scenario, a lot of times there's a lot of physical demand on your body, whether it's, removing limbs out of your driveway from a hurricane or digging people out of rubble from an earthquake or whatever it happens to be. A lot of times you need that strength at that time. And another part of that first step is your mind. And I think for your mind, one of the best things you can do is always be trying to learn new skills, because knowledge doesn't weigh anything. So whether you have to bug out or bug in and you're trying to store food and provisions and things like that, knowledge doesn't take up any space and it doesn't weigh anything. So it's easy to carry around and you can always have it with you. And then the third part of step 1 is your soul. I think people need to think about what's going to happen when they do die, because 10 out of 10 people die, no matter how good your survival plan is. And I believe faith in Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. So folks need to decide what they believe and know why they believe it. And that's not something you want to be wrong about.
Absolutely.
And then go ahead.
Well, as I say, absolutely. I mean, we talk about, having faith, believing in Jesus as your Savior, believing in God and everything. That's important, because there's times where you just, and I don't know about your life, but there's times where I just, forget about the disasters and everything that's coming, where how am I going to do this? It might be a loss of a job, might be a loss of a lost one. And I can tell you what works for me. I'm not going to tell you what works for you, but what works for me is when I say, hey, God, at your will, I'm at your will, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And to be honest with you, this show is from that. It was like, hey, look, you tired of, you hear that little voice in the back of your head, pick your boots up, forget about, what happened to you in the past, or, the fact that you lost your job or whatever, and move forward. And don't worry about it. I mean, I hear Rush Limbaugh, talent on loan from God. And there's times where I would never think that I would be able to communicate like I do for the long periods, but I know where that comes from. I don't want to take his coined phrase or whatever, but I know where my abilities and my skill come from, and I'm appreciative of that. So, I'm glad to hear you, and it is so refreshing to hear the fact that is part of your survival plan, and that you're actually educating, or that is tantamount to your plan, and everything. So, you mentioned body. This is something I was actually on your website, actually on your Facebook page, and I saw that you have the book, Fat, Sick, and Tired. You highlighted that book. I will tell you, I did those drinks as a I've got the mind made up. I'm pretty good about the mind, but I can tell you about the body. I'm definitely lacking there. Too many McDonald's cheeseburgers and all those things, pizzas and stuff. But I will tell you, for those listeners out there, on Prepper Recon, on the Facebook page, also on the website, they highlighted a book called Fat, Sick, Tired, and Dying. Is that the name of it, Mark?
I think so. I think that's something that somebody else pasted on my page. I haven't read it myself yet, but I'm familiar with the concept, and I think it is a good blog.
Well, you can actually, if you own Netflix, I watched it on Netflix about 2 months ago. And I can tell you, I did that juicing diet for about a month and a half to 2 months. I lost over 40 pounds.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. I was in the best mental, physical shape that I could possibly be in. And then I will tell you that then stress of life, you know, finding out that I was going to lose my job because of the sequester, and the fact that I was going to lose my job because of Obamacare, and all of those things, and the stress of life, you know, I went back to the easy way. And I was looking at my juicer the other day after seeing it on your page, and I was like, oh, I got to get back into it. But I will tell my listeners, go out to Netflix if you got it, I will tell you flat out, you know, I did it for about a month and a half, almost 2 months, and I lost over 40 pounds. And I was feeling great. I felt the best I did, but, you know, once again, I got sucked back into the Monsanto world and all of their poisons and stuff. So we talk about body, Mark, and stuff, and, you know, what can we do? Yeah, I know you mentioned just walking and stuff. I mean, there are some other suggestions, things that we can do to kind of get our body, you know, you said join a gym or, you know, do some exercise, but, you know, I'm sitting at home. I guess my question is this, because I know me. I'm sitting at home. What can I do right now to kind of help, you know, get my body back in shape?
I'm probably not the one to ask for that, because I won't do anything in my house. If I'm going to the gym, once I get to the gym, I don't have anything else to do. So I pretty much have to work out once I'm there. But when I'm at home, I'll find something else to do, and I'll just never do it.
Sure.
But you could just do push-ups and sit-ups. And what I do is in the mornings when I wake up, I start by stretching for about 10 minutes, because I've got arthritis, and it's not super bad, but just 10 minutes of stretching in the morning kind of loosens me up and gets me a little bit more mobile. And I'll say another thing about it is whether it's walking or jogging or bike riding or whatever your activity that you enjoy doing is, it relieves a lot of stress too. So that's also good for your mind. So it's got dual benefits. One of the things I just started doing at my gym is they have a cardio kickbox class, and it's not real kung fu type stuff. It's a lot more cardio than anything else, but you are doing some kicks and you are throwing some punches and some things like that. So you're de-stressing, you're getting the cardio workout, and you're training your memory muscle in case you ever are in a conflict where you do need to rely on your feet or your hands to defend yourself.
Sure. You know, it's kind of funny. You know, we watch the zombie movies, and Sandy and I will be watching them, and the first thing she says, so maybe this is my wake up call. I think, you know, a lot of people, even my doctors, told me that I need to get back in shape and everything, because she's like, look, the good news is you're going to get eaten first. And that might give, you know, so I mean, we're kind of realistic in our family and stuff. So maybe that's her wake up call. Say, hey, Jeff, you need to get back on the juice diet, start exercising a little bit more. So, you know, and it's amazing. You got to hear other people. You know, we tend not to listen to those around us, and we listen to other people and everything. So hopefully after the show, and I know she's listening, so she'll be laughing when I get home tonight after the show. Say, I told you so. So we talked about the body, we talked about the mind, or we, you know, talk a little bit about mind. Where, you know, the internet is so inundated with prepping and stuff. And to be honest with you, most of the listeners, most of the people that I talk to, I don't want to say listeners of the show, the Patriots and stuff, because they're pretty well educated. I find out Patriots, and actually, I don't know if you know this, but there was a study by Yale that proves this, that Tea Party members are actually smarter in the sciences than liberals. That came out today. So it's kind of funny, ironic that we're talking about the mind and Patriots and stuff. But most of us out there in the community, their exposure to prepping is, you know, the History Channel, you know, the preppers. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, yeah,
there's almost as many bad examples on there as there are good examples.
exactly. And that was the thing that actually kind of turned me off. I would watch those shows and I'm like, these guys really? I mean, you got to prepare and you got to plan. There's none but, it was almost a neurosis, when I was watching the show. And I guess, so when I talk to people about prepping and preparing, non-patriots, they get it. You don't have to explain it to them, but non-patriots, what kind of advice would you have for those that are out there that aren't part of the patriot movement of the community, that haven't really educated themselves, and their only exposure to prepping is what they see in mainstream media?
Well, you know what? Prepping isn't for the people that need it. It's for the people that want it, because everybody needs it. Because, like you said in the opening of the show, we're on an unsustainable path. We cannot continue to borrow and spend in the manner in which we're doing without a complete and total currency collapse. It's no currency and no fiat currency in the world has ever lasted, and we're in the final stages of ours, I think. And so I think the number one thing you need to do is wake people up to the need, and until you do that, everything else is just going to be wasted, pearls before swine,
Sure. And I guess go ahead.
But then after that, I'll just run through the 7 B's real quick, and I won't get real in depth to them, and then we'll go back over them later if we've still got time. The first B letter word was the body, mind, and soul, and then number 2 is your budget. You got to get financially responsible and get control of your money the best you can. And then number 3 is really the first thing that people would think of a traditional step in prepping, and that's the bug out bag. And a bug out bag is, and this is probably a good answer to your question, this is where you start, I think, after you've got your body, mind, and soul and your budget worked out. You get your bug out bag. And now that bug out bag is going to have everything in it that you need to survive for 72 hours. It's going to have 72 hours worth of food. It's going to have a small hygiene kit. It's going to have a small first aid kit. I would recommend getting a flash drive and putting all of your important papers, scan all of those and put them on that flash drive, and all of your bank accounts and all your personal information, insurance information, phone numbers, put everything on that flash drive. And you can even encrypt that. There's a free encryption program called TrueCrypt, and I think if you Google TrueCrypt, it's going to come right up. And it's pretty easy to learn. It'll take you about 10-15 minutes to figure it out, and put it on your flash drive and put an encryption key on there to where nobody else can get to it except you. So you're going to have that. You're going to have your food, a little tent, and you could put a sleeping bag, and you can roll that up and tie it to the bottom of your bag usually, and then a way to start fire, and something to hold water, and something to purify water, because water is one of the things that you have to have, and you can't go very long without it. So you make sure that you've got, and I recommend the Catadine. The Hiker Pro is about $79 or $80, and it'll filter something like 2,000 or 3,000 gallons of water before you have to change the filter. And
Wow.
so if you've got that little bug out bag, it's also a bug in bag, because you have 3 days worth of food in there. You have a little medical kit. You have a little backup hygiene kit in case there's some type of epidemic that you can't leave your house for 3 days. Then you don't have to worry about running out of soap or something. You have at least a 3-day supply in that bag of everything that you need, that you can make it without leaving the house or going to the grocery store or something for 3 days. So I think that's probably a good place to start, is the bug out bag. Sure.
And I think that's important. And, one of the other things, you talked about encryption. I think it's very important, whatever encryption you go with, make sure it's PGP encryption.
Okay.
So that is something that, I'm pretty familiar with and stuff, but it's important that you talked about water. Now Sandy and I, we went to Costco when I first started prepping myself and everything. We went to Costco, and they have the pails, which are a 1 month supply of food for an adult for 1 month. So, that's where we started. But one of the things that you realize really quick, and I will tell you this, we've actually eaten food out of them just to kind of see what they're like. So we actually had about 6 months supply. Now we're down to about 4 months. We actually enjoy the food. We call it nuclear macaroni and stuff. We have different names for the kids and stuff. But to try it, to see what it's like, to get to understand how to prepare it. But one thing that's critical in all of those is, you're absolutely right. Water. And I think that's very critical in how you're going to get water, because they all need water in order for you to cook the food. And I'm glad that you said that. And then, you talked about your budget, getting your house in order now. That's important, obviously. One of the things that actually just happened to me this week on Monday, I went to the gas station and I went to go use my debit card. It didn't work. I was like, well, excuse me? Yeah, it didn't work. So then I had to drive to my bank. And of course they couldn't help me, because the company that actually, that controls the card, I had to call their call center and all this, and come to find out there was I did a purchase for Adobe. We use auto software, audio editing software. So I bought the Adobe. Well, apparently Adobe's system got hacked. I got the letter like 2 days ago telling me this. So if I was out in the middle of nowhere, or if I needed that money, I didn't have access to my own bank account. I think it's very critical that. So how do we address that? What's your plan there?
Oh, I think you have to keep at least 1 month of your entire expenses in cash somewhere on the premises of your home, whether it's in a safe, or you dig a little hole in the backyard, or under your mattress, or wherever. The mattress is probably not really the best place. It's probably the safe, or the backyard's probably going to be better. But you got to have some cash outside of the banking system. And I think you were talking about at the beginning of the show about Chase, and they're going to be limiting the amount of cash withdrawals that business accounts can take. They're also limiting, they've completely shut down the ability for their business customers to transfer cash outside of America. And, those sound like government capital controls to me. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, it is. I mean, I don't know. I think in our first show, we actually talked about there is a written law, that whole part of the Patriot Act that was written in about the $10,000 and how you can transfer and stuff. But the government, I probably need to play the video, but there was a grocery store in New Jersey. Well, there's several stores. If you're even a small business owner, the government actually came in and took their bank account, because they said that they were doing irregular bank transactions. Because I guess the law is that if you do over $10,000, it's got to be reported to the government. Well, these people were always depositing $999,000 or $9,995 or whatever it was. So the government saw that as erroneous. So they came in and actually shut them down. I probably need to play that audio for our listeners. And so forget about Chase, forget about the banks and stuff. The government can come in and take your account. And what's even more scary, I don't know if you read the actual Obamacare law, but there is a provision in there where it allows the government to look at your credit score and allows the insurance company to adjust your premium based upon your credit score, number one. Number two, they can look at your credit score as they're rendering services to see your ability to pay the deductibles or the copays or whatever. And then number three, it gives them, you read the law. I've actually read the 7,200 pages.
Wow.
I went through it with a highlighter. And then the third part of that is it allows the government at any time to come in and take the money out of your account. If you don't pay the penalty or if you don't have insurance, they don't have to give you notice. They can just come in there and take that money out of your account at any given time. So I think you're correct. Now, it's interesting to hear you say about cash or money and stuff. No gold, no silver.
Well, yeah, I do, and I get to that. That's a couple of steps down the road. Step number 4 is beans, and that's just sort of the thing that represents all the stored food, because it's the B letter word. And you mentioned that you guys bought the long-term storage food, and that's great. And it's great that you got it out and you saw what it was like and you ate it. And you have to test your preps. You have to know that they're going to work before game day. So that's really, really important thing to do. And I believe in storing what you eat and eating what you store. But that also ensures that you're always rotating things. I don't really buy a lot of the long-term storage food, but that is such a great thing especially for anybody that doesn't have a lot of time to think about what they're going to put together. For anybody that's on a limited budget, you can get a 5-gallon bucket, and it could be an old paint bucket. And you can get a Mylar liner, which they sell on Amazon. I think they sell 10 of them for $20, and they come with oxygen absorbers. And you can put a 20-pound bag of rice in there, and about 12 pounds of beans in there, dried beans. And the 20-pound bag of rice you can get at Walmart for about $7, and the beans are about $1 a pound. So you're talking for under $20. You can fill up that 5-gallon bucket full of rice and beans, and that'll last you about 20 days for one person. If you count out the calories, it's about 20 days worth of food in that 20-gallon bucket. That 5-gallon bucket. And you just take an iron and you run it across the top of the Mylar with a little board that you could use like an ironing board. And that'll seal that, and with that oxygen absorber in there, your rice would normally last 20 years. That'll add about another 5 or 10 years to the rice storage, and your beans will last about 10 years, and that'll add a couple more years to the storage on the beans. So that bucket could just sit there for 12 years and still be fine 12 years later.
Sure. Now,
and a good thing about beans is they've got a lot of protein, a lot of fiber. So that's a really, really good survival food. And rice. And now when people buy rice, a lot of people, they want to be healthy and they'll buy the brown rice, and that's great for your everyday eating. But for long-term storage, you want to get parboiled rice. I recommend that first, or white rice, because the brown rice still has the bran on it, and the bran has fat in it, and it'll rot. So it'll only last about 2 years, maybe 3. But it's not really it's more nutritious because of the bran on it, but it's not as good of a long-term storage food. And the parboiled rice is steamed with the bran still on it, and that pushes some of the nutrients into the rice when they remove the husk with that steaming process. So I like parboiled the best.
Sure. Now, do you keep the beans in the right, in their original packaging and then put that inside, or do you take them out of their original packaging?
No, leave them in their original packaging.
Okay. Didn't know if you, okay. So you do that, and then, now how storage, tell me, I hear like one of the things when I bought ours, like I said, from Costco, the local guy, we paid, almost 3 times that. It was about, I think it's not, you can still, I was looking on the web the other day, you can still get them for $99. That's the full meal and stuff. But one of the things that they stress is storage temperature. I think that's important. And then, I guess the way you store. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, if you keep it in a cool, dry area, it's going to store the longest. And just if you have to keep it in the garage and it's a little hotter, it's going to knock a little bit of your storage time off of there. But that Mylar is really, really going to seal it good, and it's going to keep the oxygen and the light out, and that's the most important things. And most people aren't going to have it sitting out in direct sunlight anyway. So. Sure.
So we live in Wisconsin, so it's about 42 degrees. Our basement's here.
That's perfect.
Yeah, our basements. I think being a Wisconsin person, obviously, we kind of tend to like our beer, and I'm a home brewer on the side and stuff. So, I think our basements stay 68 to 72 year round. Is that pretty good? Is that Is that
That's
perfect?
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, basement's a great area to have. Here in Florida, we can't have basements because, we're 2 feet above sea level. So
Gotcha.
it'd be a in-ground pool if we had a basement.
Absolutely. So, all right. So we talked about mind, body, spirit. We talked about, the beans and stuff. Next step?
The bullets. Now that you've got your 72-hour kit, you've got a little food, you've managed to squirrel away at least a month's worth of expenses, and you're keeping that in cash in your home. Now you got to defend all this stuff, right? Because nobody else on your block got prepared, and it just hit the fan. So they're all going to be on your porch, and they might be nice about it on day one when you say no, but on day 2 they might not. So you're going to have to be able to defend all that stuff.
Yeah, which is really sad, because I actually had friends that had told me that they're going to come over and kill me and take my food. I mean,
yeah,
at least they're honest about it. But
and it's terrible. But if they probably will try if you're not ready and willing to defend yourself and your family.
Sure.
And it's like the ant and the grasshopper story. I don't know if you remember that.
No.
The grasshopper laughed and played the fiddle all summer, and then he was laughing at the ants who were getting ready for winter, and they were stocking up and storing away. And then when fall came, he went to the ants' house and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, can I come in?" And they're like, "No, sorry, we just stored enough for us." But it's an old. I think it's an Aesop's. It's one of Aesop's fables.
An old Aesop.
Actually.
Well,
Yeah.
it is funny that we bring this up, because I do remember one of the first episodes I saw of Preppers on the History Channel when they were showing it was up in New Jersey. There was a family that had everything else, had the garden, had the community, everything, but didn't have the guns. They were not they were anti-gun. Or whatever. And it was funny because one of the young couples that was part of their group, I remember watching it, basically told the cameraman, said, yeah, kind of like my friends, I'm just going to go over there and kill them. I mean, they actually said that on History Channel. So it was, and that was like, that was my first experience of the Prepper Show. And I was like, oh, here we go. Here's mainstream media taking a good idea and distorting it. And then, letting, kind of say, oh, don't worry about it, but it's just kind of crazy. But bullets are very important. I mean, with the bullets, everybody that's in as a Patriot knows that ammunition has been hard to find. I know that it's starting to hit the shelves now. It's pretty much readily available. I mean, where's a good source of getting ammunition?
Well, I've got a link to Lucky Gunner on PrepperRecon.com. And it just says Lucky Gunner. It's yellow and green. You can click that, and they've usually got just about everything. I think they even have 22 right now, which is really hard to find still, I think.
Sure. I mean, I used to buy my ammo, before I actually have a press. So we manufacture a lot of our own, but I know that Notches, cheaper than dirt, is another company. Give them all free plugs here and stuff. I know that they're pretty reasonable as well. And, one of the things, and I think our listeners need to know this, especially those that are Second Amendment, and also the 3% and stuff. Walmart, obviously, I used to go there and buy my ammo there until I was educated about how most of the money that goes from the ammo sales at Walmart actually goes into the Mayor's Against Guns campaign. So just kind of let you guys know about that. But so ammunition and everything. So do you reload your own, or you just buy it already sealed?
No, well, we just buy it. I haven't gotten into all of that yet. I don't have the space for it right now, but hopefully someday I will.
Sure. Now, is there any special consideration for storing ammo?
Well, if you get it in the dry boxes, if you get it in the military boxes, those have a little seal on it, which will keep the moisture away from them, and most things should be pretty good with that. Sure.
Now, being in Wisconsin, we're a concealed carry state. just got our concealed carry about 2 years ago. What about your proficiency? I mean, all right, so I've got my gun, I have my food, I have my weapon, or to protect my family. One of the things I see is your proficiency level with that. Obviously, with any other tool, I think you have to become proficient, shouldn't you? What's your recommendations? Yeah,
you have to train. Yeah. So when you're buying your ammo, I think there's 4 prepper favorites that people have for guns. I think most people think that a prepper should have a large capacity semi-automatic pistol, something that's concealable, but still a medium or large frame gun like a Glock. And then whatever caliber you'd like is the one you should get in that. And then I think shotgun is a great home defense weapon, and it's versatile, and it can also be used for hunting. And that ammunition seemed to be pretty readily available, even through the last scare after the school shooting. And then I think, especially for Patriots, I think that Patriots should have a battle rifle. And whatever you like, whether it's an AK or an AR, whatever your preference is, I think that's. I don't think the Second Amendment's about a right. I think that the way the Second Amendment reads, I think it's about a duty, and I think it's about a responsibility. And I think that our forefathers had in mind for us to be able to stand up to a tyrannical government, and that's why they put that amendment in the Bill of Rights. So I think that it's a duty for a patriot to have a battle rifle, and whichever one you like. But now for your battle rifle, I think that people should have a minimum of 1,000 rounds just for storage. I think if you're in a firefight beyond 1,000 rounds, you've either taken out enough people that you can take their ammo, or you're not here anymore, so it's not an issue once you're beyond that 1,000 rounds. And then you probably need some to train with, whatever you need to train with to become proficient with that firearm. And then also I think it's good to have a concealed carry weapon as well.
Sure.
I think the Ruger LC9, that's a good one, or they also have the Ruger also makes a 38. But there's lots of good small concealed carry weapons.
Yeah, when I was putting my gun list together and everything, I looked at what the law enforcement, what the military was carrying. I mean, obviously, there's a reason why they're carrying those things and stuff. And so I went with the AR over the AK. And I, my thing is that if it did hit the fan, you got to look at, like you said, you can only store so much ammo. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have to take ammo here and there. And so I, kind of looked at what would be accessible if I needed to be. And that was my determination. But like you said, it's completely up to the individual. But, at least you should have something, as opposed to nothing in that
mm-hmm.
regard. Now, we talked about the Second Amendment, and it's curious to say, I don't know, we talked about this last night with our guests. If you go to the Senate website, mm-hmm. it's amazing. They have an explanation, and it's not written for school kids. It was actually written, I think, for adults, because it is somewhat of a higher level English and stuff. And it's amazing what they say about the Second Amendment. This is still open for debate. I mean, they list the amendments in their entirety, and then they give an explanation next to them. And on the Senate's webpage, they clearly say, well, this is still open for debate. And that was just shocking, completely shocking. I'm a firm believer. There's a reason why they want the ARs and as they would classify the black guns.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely a reason of that. So, we, spent the last 50 minutes. We got through step 4? Are we at 4?
Yeah, we were on step 5 with bullets, and then
okay.
Step 6 is the one you mentioned earlier, and that's bullion. That's our B-letter word for having some alternative currencies. And now I want to mention too that ammo will likely be an alternative currency when it hits the fan, because it's divisible, it's standardized, and it has a utility, and it's made out of metals. It's a brass, lead, copper alloy, so that might be the precious metal post-collapse. But I think for long-term wealth preservation, because I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to go on a collapse and stay there. At least I hope not. And when we come out on the other side, I think that bullion will have been the best way to have preserved your wealth through the collapse. There might not be a lot of things to buy with it during the collapse, so you probably need to have your food and your ammo and the things that you need to get through to the other side prior to it. But after the collapse, I think that bullion will have proved to have been a good way to preserve your wealth. And I think that people should start with silver because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to acquire. It's more divisible. If you get a 1 ounce gold eagle, you've basically got a $1,300 bill, right now. And post-collapse, it'll probably be double that. So let's say you have a $2,500 bill. Nobody's got change for that. But now silver, it's a little bit more divisible. If you've got a 1 ounce silver eagle, you've got right now about a $25 bill. So that's a little bit more conducive to barter.
Sure.
It's silver.
Well,
so I think that you start with silver, maybe your first 5,000 in silver, and then after that start splitting it half and half in gold. And then when you do start buying the gold, I recommend paying the little bit higher premium to get the 1/4 ounce eagles or get the 1/4 ounce maple leafs as opposed to buying the whole ounce.
Sure. Now, this is the one thing that I've always had a hard time with. I mean, I understand, the purchase of gold, the purchase of silver, and it's important. I think you stress that that's like as we're coming out as a post kind of thing, because one of the comments or observations I make is that, if it hits the fan and you got to bug out, you're not, you go and you need food for your family. Are you really going to be able to buy that with a gold bar? Most people are going to probably want to barter. You watch the modern shows where alcohol, and like you said, bullets and alcohol. It seems like those seem to be more of during the crisis, those seem to be more of a bartering chip than the actual gold and silver and stuff. So I guess that's one of my concerns. One of the things that we did, being that we are a home brewer, so we know how to make alcohol. So we joke about it as like, hey, I'm safe there. But the other thing too is that we actually bought a vehicle specifically designed for E85, because we can make our own fuel for that vehicle. And there was a great book. I remember listening to a show years ago. I believe it was on Coast to Coast AM, actually, with George Norrie, where he had a gentleman on there. It was he wrote a book and they had a video set called Alcohol as a Gas. So he explains that whole process of turning vegetable matter into alcohol that you can then burn in your car as E85 or E100 at that point, and everything. So that's important. So all right, so we got our beans, we got our house, our personal life in order, we got our ammo, we got our bullion. What's next?
And the next thing, I think you need a bug out location. And then that's the final step. But I think that in case things do get to the point where you're not able to stay in your area any longer, you need to already know where you're going to go. And the national forest is not a good place because everybody's thinking that. And they're going to have all the deer killed in the first 3 weeks. So you're not going to be living off the fat of the land going and bugging out to the national forest because everybody's going to try to do that. And so you need to either have a predetermined place that you're going to go stay with relatives. Maybe James Wesley Rawls always calls them the country cousins that you're going to go stay with, or start thinking about buying a couple of acres and a fifth wheel that you can throw on the back of your truck or your car and just tow up there and kind of be out of the cut for a little while until things settle down. But I think we've already seen a little bit of a preview with the things that we can probably expect in the cities. Detroit's a great example. They're already in almost a post-collapse scenario. It takes 58 minutes on average for 911 to respond to high priority calls in Detroit.
Well, and
I think that's what we're going to be looking at in all of the cities, because everybody's making budget cuts and everybody's laying off more and more police officers and fire departments and medical. And you need to be able to have some proficiency in taking care of those three things yourself. You know, have a fire extinguisher to be able to put out a small fire in your house, and have some advanced medical equipment. And, you know, if that's in your bug out bag, you already have it. You know exactly where it is. Yeah. And then being able to defend yourself, like we talked about with bullets, for when police and EMS and the fire department can't get there for an hour or two.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's, you know, you're talking about 58 minutes in a normal setting. Well, Detroit, I don't know if it's normal, but, you know, when you have disaster, natural disaster, I think you can pretty much count on, you know, look at what happened with Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey and stuff. They said those houses burned for a day to 2 days because they just let them burn. You know, I live literally, my home is literally about 32 miles outside of Chicago, Illinois. So, you know, and everybody, you only have to be in Wisconsin for about a week to notice that we get perforated with Illinois license plates come Friday through Sunday. And then they kind of move down, and that's enough to drive our traffic crazy on our interstates. They're actually putting in 4 lanes now to handle that traffic load. So I can only imagine what would happen if you had a natural disaster or some kind of situation in an urban, in that type of setting. I mean, you're absolutely correct. You know, that you need to have a place to go. I mean, we would be just swamped. I think that we would definitely have to leave. And it's you know, it's interesting here because we were sitting there looking on Craigslist, because one of the things that we are looking at is getting an RV or a fifth wheel to pull behind our, to store our food. And also, you know, we want to take our show on the road as well. So we were looking. So I noticed you said fifth wheel. Is that because of some design or some preference, or versus just a standard RV?
No. I think whatever works for you. I think that a trailer is going to be. I think it's a better investment, because I think when you get a regular RV where actually everything's all one thing, I think that now you have a truck that's dedicated just to pulling around the attached trailer that's all constructed into one thing. And for me, it just makes more sense to have a truck, and then something that has the normal utilities of a truck, and then something that can be pulled by a truck, any type of trailer. Sure. I think that makes more sense economically. But for people where money's not an issue, or if for somebody like you that's going to go and take a show on the road, and you're going to be living out of it all the time, then maybe an RV is better. Yeah, we're kind of looking, and that was the thing, and those are my arguments too, is that if we use this, at least we could detach it and use the vehicle by itself, and we, driving through and everything. So that was one of the arguments. But then again, I guess there's 2 parts. Any ATVs, any backup vehicles such as that, should we own those? Well, I would definitely say to have one of those, especially if you're going to have the RV where you can't detach and run. And now that you've got me thinking about it, I really like the truck pulling the trailer model, because if you have a fuel issue where gasoline's not available, or you can't manufacture your own E85 fast enough or whatever, and you have to ditch and run, you have that option with the truck. And even with an ATV, you're not going to get too far without gas. And maybe with the truck, you could throw a couple of cans in the back, and it'll get you a little further away from the disaster faster. But you'll always have that option of pulling the pin and leaving the trailer if you had to. All right. Hey, I was looking at the clock, Mark. Can you go another hour? I've got so many more questions for you. I can go a few more minutes. Okay. Well, then, but I'll tell you what, we'll definitely do it again next Thursday. We can do it next Thursday. Well, then let's just kind of blow through this. Like I said, what's really nice about
the fact that we, the syndicate and the network, we're not getting the ad feeds right now. So we can just continue. So, because I still have some more questions for you. And, because these are the questions that people are asking me and everything. So, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, I tend to listen to the experts, people that like yourself, people that are put the thought process to it. I'm still learning myself and everything. But one of the things I've been telling people, especially with and correct me if I'm wrong here, with the banks and everything that's going on in financials and stuff, your money, I had, a very well-known author, on, about a month ago, Ellen Brown, and she's talking about the private banking, and we talked about the Federal Reserve as our first interview that we actually did. And one of the things that's come apparent to me is that your money's just not safe sitting in a bank. I mean, Chase is saying that they're going to do what they're going to do. The government's saying that they can come and do it. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is, instead of, everything that you listed, property, RV, food, and stuff, those are tangibles. So I'm kind of stressing to my friends and family, take your money out of the bank and get those tangibles, buy that property, buy that RV, buy that, and I know it's contradicted to Dave Ramsey. He's like, oh, save your money and invest in the future. But for, I don't think the financial future is going to be here. I think it's just a place that you throw your money in and the government can come and take you. What's your opinions on that?
Well, if you look at the track record for things like gold versus the U.S. dollar, let's think about a $5 Indian head coin from 1929. That's a quarter ounce of gold, and it was worth $5 in 1929. So gold versus that $5 face value, the gold's outperformed it by 6,500%, and that's about 84 years. So it's 77% inflation per year averaged out over the 84 years from 1929, when $5 was a quarter ounce of gold, and to now when $5 is a piece of paper that says Federal Reserve note on the top. And I think we all know what a note is. If you have a note on your house, what is it? It's a debt instrument. And if you have a note on your car, what is it? It's a debt instrument. So we went from something that has value, that people have to put effort into to mine out of the ground, to being our money, to now they don't even have to print it on the paper anymore. It's just a keystroke in a computer.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen I don't know if you had a chance, but like I said, we did that interview with Ellen Brown. You have to listen. I mean, exactly what you just said.
Now, is she the woman that wrote the book about the Fed?
Yes. She wrote.
Yeah, and she's got another video out about the coming derivatives time bomb too. That one might be a couple of years old, but
exactly.
It's really good what she says in that.
She actually wrote too the Web of Debt, which was her first book, was what we talked about, where she kind of, it's a great book. All my listeners out there, you really need to listen. She takes the issues of the Federal Reserve, kind of gives you a little historical background of the Federal Reserve, and then ties that into the classic Wizard of Oz. And educated me, with the fact that the Wizard of Oz, Bloom's book, was actually talking about the ruby slippers weren't actually ruby slippers in the book. They were silver. He was a big silver part of that movement. And, obviously the scarecrow represented the farmer, the Tin Man represented the industrial, and great book. But then more importantly, she's a huge advocate of private banks, public banks, not private banks, public banks, which are owned by the governments. And she, she has the public banking sector. She owns that, or has that group. And, she was talking about Montana, I believe, they have public banks, and, and how they're doing very well. So she lays out some very cognitive solutions to our financial problems, but obviously it's going against the big banks and everything. And, obviously, we talk a lot about, which is a whole nother topic we can get into, what LaRouche and those guys are doing with the Glass-Steagall Act, getting that reinstated. We've been talking with Paul Gallagher and everything. But, so like I said, what I've been telling my friends and family is take your money out of the bank. Don't keep it there because it could disappear. We can have a bank holiday anytime, and then buy real tangible products like you were saying. Buy your land. Do you know what the ratio says? I have a family of 4, right? So I've got 2 teenagers. I know that I went to a couple sites and they said teenagers under the age of this age need this much calories, adults at this age need this much. So a family of 4, do you know what the ratio, how much land should we have to actually, if we wanted to farm that land to kind of support ourselves? Do you know those numbers?
I don't, and it's going to depend on what you want to do. Chickens are going to take up a certain amount of area, and vegetable gardens are going to take up a certain amount of area. Cows are going to need a lot more area for grazing than, say, goats. So it depends on what you're going to use for meat. But Jack Spirko over at the Survival Podcast does a whole lot of shows on permaculture and the way that animals and vegetables and everything can kind of work together, because if you have the cows or you have some manure producing animal to help supplement your soil, it's going to be much more sustainable, because you might not be able to get fertilizer and then but I'll tell you what, you can do an awful lot on 2 or 3 acres, and you could probably feed a family of 4 on 3 acres if it was all used wisely and
sure.
And that's another thing that's got a learning curve is, when I started growing it, I'm from Kentucky originally, and I live in South Florida now, and we're looking to maybe get back up in that direction because we're trying to get out of here.
Sure.
But it was a big learning curve for me to try to learn to garden in South Florida, because the soils, we don't have soil for number one. It's all sand. So I have to have raised bed gardens, and I compost everything, my grass clippings and banana peels and coffee grounds and everything. I compost all of that to create my own soil to put in those raised beds that go over the sand, and then there's still just a limited amount of things that I can grow here.
Sure. Which actually,
that's a learning.
Well, you're fortunate, because where we live, actually, you have to have a permit to within city limits to have a garden.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's great. Each municipality is different and stuff, but yeah, that doesn't mean we did a small garden in the back, and everything. I'm not, come and give me my ticket, officer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the reality of it is that it is what it is. There's so many other things that they'd be worried about. But yeah, in our community, in order to have a garden, technically you're supposed to have a permit to do that and stuff. So we determined what 3-4 acres is fine. Now it's interesting you say, because I'd never thought about that, because I always thought having a farm animal would be somewhat of a, would be difficult, because now you got to feed and water them. But it's very interesting, because like I said, I never really thought about that chickens or some kind of animal to produce the fertilizer that you need to sustain your agricultural efforts and stuff. So that's news to me. So I'm glad that I asked that question and stuff. So, man, we have covered a lot, in a short hour. We're already an hour and 10 minutes into the conversation here at the Midnight Patriots. If you have any other questions, feel free to go out to prepperrecon.com. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct. And then I also do a weekly podcast. It's called the Prepper Recon Podcast, and that goes up every Friday.
Sure.
This week's guest is going to be Bernie Carr, which is the apartment prepper, and we're going to talk a lot about of things that would, for people that have to prep in small spaces. So that's going to be a good show for that. And then also, I'd like to let everybody know that I did just write a new book. It's called American Exit Strategy, Book 1 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles. And that is it's a near future dystopian fiction that looks at some of the real economic challenges that we're facing and some of the real political challenges that we're facing. and there's a family, and it goes from a family that's here in Florida that they find out that their preps weren't quite as adequate as they thought they were, and then they have to bug out and figure out how to make things work after we start seeing the first cracks in the facade, because I think that we'll probably have this sort of a slow grind when we really start seeing things fall apart. And then book 2 is going to really chronicle the complete total collapse and the government takeovers and things like that. But book 1 gets all the background into it. And also in book 1 we see a third-party candidate, and his name is Paul Randall. I think if you transposed his first and last name, you might be able to figure out who was my influence for that character. And he rises up to try to fight back against the welfare and the warfare spending to try to get us back on a sustainable path. And it's a 3-way election, and things kind of turn out a little funny. But I think that your listeners would really enjoy the book, and it's a good way to wake people up. You were asking me earlier about what do you do to wake up people that don't really see the need to prepare. So it's got a lot of things in it. It's got a lot of numbers in it that are, I think, pretty modest projection of what the numbers are going to look like in 4 or 5 years if we keep on the path that we're on.
Well, I think anybody that reads it, I mean, just look at recent history. I mean, you don't have to go back that far in history. Number one is, when you look at the Great Depression, you had about 20% were city dwellers. You had about 80% that was agriculture. And even under the Great Depression, you had about 2 million people die of starvation.
And now the demographics are exactly opposite.
Exactly. I mean, look at what happened down in Louisiana. The EBT system. Now, granted, you had the thief mentality going on down there, but I mean, that's been fostered by our government, by the handouts. Yeah.
We've taught those people that they're not responsible for their self, and that all they have to do is show up and vote Democrat every 4 years, and we'll take care of them.
Yeah.
And so they've been taught for multiple generations now that they're not responsible for taking care of themselves, that somebody else is going to take care of them. So when they don't get taken care of, they lash out at everybody around them, because whoever's fault it is, it's not theirs.
Well, it's that classic video that we actually played, or the audio that we put on here with the lady that has the 15 kids who is getting, people are providing for her, people are helping her and stuff, and she's still standing there going, who's going to take care of my kids? Who's going to be responsible for my kids? I mean, we play it nonstop because it's so poignant. But, look at, like I said, when the EBT system went down, and I don't care what people say, that EBT system went down, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, but the EBT system went down as a shot across the bow saying, hey, look, if you don't play ball with us and pass the debt ceiling and get the government back open, this is what you can expect. And within 20 minutes, a Walmart was completely gutted from floor to ceiling of food, from people rating that.
Yeah, that's why you got to get prepared before it happens, because when it happens, it's too late. 2 hours, it was cleared out. Most cities have about 3 days worth of food in them. So, and then that can all be cleared off the shelf in 2 hours. So you either get it before you need it, just like insurance, or you don't get it at all. So people need to prepare now.
Sure. So, hey, Mark, I know your time is precious. You got, other things going on and stuff. I appreciate it. Of course, can we get links to your book, to your podcast? We'll definitely like to broadcast those out and get those out there to our audience as well, because obviously it's very important. We talk about problems all the time here at the Midnight Patriot, and this is our solution part of the programming that we want to do, is also, hey, look, this is what we can do as a solution. So Mark, it's been wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening and spending it with us and our listeners. And I look forward to it. I know we talked about doing a weekly kind of update and kind of like a survival guide every week and stuff. Are you still up for that, or?
Absolutely, Jeff. I'll be back here as much as possible every Thursday.
Oh, wonderful, man. I'll put it. Hey, make sure you send us the links to your books and everything. We'll get those out there.
Absolutely.
You got one sold.
Exit Strategy. American Exit Strategy actually has its own website, so you can just go to AmericanExitStrategy.com, and that's got links to purchase the book either from the paperback from CreateSpace, which is an Amazon company, or you can purchase it from Amazon through the Kindle store there, or you can just look it up on Amazon, and you can just type in American Exit Strategy, and it'll pop right up. And then the podcast is on PrepperRecon.com, and it'll just be in the regular blog posts every Friday and Saturday, or there's a corner that says podcast where you can go back and listen to the archives.
Sure. Right, man, I appreciate it. Be well, and Godspeed to you. And we'll be in touch. We'll give you a shout. I look forward to. I'll have a list of questions. Hopefully, we'll get some more questions for you and for next Thursday. But hey, thanks, Mark, for having a great day. This is Mark with Prepper Recon. You can go to his website at prepperrecon.com. Also, look at his books. Now, we will, if you come to the MidnightPatriot.com, we will actually have links and have some advertisement out there for him in his book. So be well, Mark. You have a great night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show, and congratulations on the new show. I love it. I think it's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Hey, Prepper Recon fans. I just published my new book, American Exit Strategy, Book 1 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles. Liberty-minded individuals who believe in the Constitution will find this near-future dystopian novel to be right up their alley. Those who are looking to be more informed about the potential threats to America's financial stability will learn what to watch for and how to prepare themselves for an economic collapse. In Book 1, America is on the cusp of financial annihilation. Matt and Karen Baer face the challenges of Main Street during a full-scale financial meltdown. Government borrowing and monetary creation have reached their limits. When funds are no longer available for government programs, widespread civil unrest erupts across the country. Matt and Karen are forced to move to a more remote location, and their level of preparedness is revealed as being much less adequate than they believed prior to the crisis. Meanwhile, Paul Randall, a third-party presidential candidate, arises to push back against the welfare and warfare spending that have bankrupted our country. While he's gained expansive acceptance across the country, the fight has just begun. Paul Randall proposes a plan to mitigate the coming hyperinflationary collapse, which is a mathematical certainty. His plan is known as the American Exit Strategy. American Exit Strategy uses survival fiction to take an in-depth look at the real-life politics and economics behind the issues that are likely to trigger a currency collapse or financial meltdown in the near future. American Exit Strategy is a work of fiction until it becomes history. Go to AmericanExitStrategy.com today to learn more or purchase your copy for Kindle in PDF format or paperback. Happy prepping.